What if humanity went into a nuclear war that destroyed civilizations as we all know it? In 1947, the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists created the Doomsday Clock, a daunting countdown to when humanity will end itself through nuclear annihilation. In case you were worried, the clock was updated in 2020 and has stayed the same ever since. 90 seconds to midnight. The closest it's ever been to the dooming arrival of the greatest man-made global catastrophe in all of history. As we discussed in our previous video, the initial blast would be catastrophic if all nuclear bombs were launched at the same time. If you live in major cities like LA, New York, or Moscow, you will be dead. If you survive the first blast, there will be more that follow to make sure it does the damage. Firestorms will pick out any survivors, even though there probably won't be any. The radiation from the blasts will finally finish the job and wipe out the remaining humans. On the first day, there will be chaos and carnage everywhere. Car wreckages all over the streets and roads. Electrical fires will start as a result, in addition to the already existing fire fields made from the blasts. Airplanes that weren't knocked by the blast will stay up for a few hours until they run out of fuel and crash. Now let's assume that the blast did not kill the animals, because in this channel, we don't harm animals. Let's also assume the entirety of humanity was wiped out on day one of the blasts, but there was still essential infrastructure such as dams, historical monuments, and power plants. Fossil fuel plants will shut down anyway throughout the first day because there will be no humans left to operate them. This will lead to electrical blackouts all across the globe, assuming there is any infrastructure still standing. Looking from outer space into the Earth, you would see complete darkness. Everything will be pitch black except for Las Vegas and New York, which are powered by electricity coming from the Hoover Dam. After the first week, there will no longer be light anywhere on the planet except for Las Vegas. The reason New York will go is because of what's going on underneath. One of the few places that could potentially be safe from nuclear blasts is the subway system. In New York, however, 13 million gallons of water are pumped out of its subway tunnels every single day. With no manual labor anymore, the tunnels will flood. The flooding will cause electric hazards throughout the entire city. If you were thinking about your home, various insects will have infiltrated your house searching for whatever food it can scavenge inside. Your pet will be doing the same. Rats and other small animals will follow and find a way inside, either through big openings, small cracks, or if they have to chew their way inside. Your pet will then begin to find a way out of the house, or it will starve to death. So you better leave a window open. Domesticated animals will not have a very pleasant time outside, as they have not been accustomed to the wild in which they enter for the first time. They now have to compete against other predators for food. If you own a large German Shepherd, then it may do fine. But if you own a Chihuahua, then God help it. Wolves will probably start to appear within the city streets to hunt for food. If your dogs don't get organized and begin to group up, they're in for a lot of trouble.
Come on, Eric, we gotta get organized. We gotta fight this kind of ignorant fucking bullshit.
There is also another problem that will shift the dynamic of the streets. As a result of all power outages, zoo barriers and security will be disabled. This means that all caged animals will just stroll out. Imagine elephants, lions, and tigers roaming the streets, the apex predators of nature. It'll be one large jungle. A month after is when trouble starts picking up. Water will erode any remaining buildings and heavily damage them. Termites will also break down wooden structures. The final catastrophe before the Earth can begin to heal. Guess what that catastrophe is? Nuclear power plants. As if the 15,000 bombs weren't enough, now we add the last nuclear material on Earth to the mix. There are 440 nuclear power plants on Earth. If they are unattended to, the material being used will heat up the water that is supposed to cool it down until it evaporates. The dry material will now heat up so much that it will fall apart until finally, every single one of those 440 power plants explodes at the same time. Now that will be the worst nuclear disaster in history. Even worse than the bombs. The radiation that will be released is 500 times more than what Hiroshima was exposed to. The planet will be covered by radioactive waste that will make the nuclear winter we talked about in the previous video look like a joke. Ecosystems around the world will start to die. Unlike the soot and aerosols from the bombs that would have cleared the atmosphere in a couple of decades, these chemicals will remain dangerous for 300 years. Some elements like plutonium will remain around for 250,000 years. Everything left on Earth will have a tough time surviving, including the birds and wild animals. After 1 year, nature will begin to make its grand comeback as it reclaims the cities and the roads. As Earth's temperature heavily drops as a result of the nuclear winter, all the roads would begin to crack from melting snow. Weeds will begin to grow from these cracks, and in a few years, grass. There will be no birds in the forests because of the radiation, but the animal population will start to boom. With no humans around to hunt them down or interfere with their business, they will thrive. And as a result of no pesticides, insects will grow quicker, taking over the world. There will be new food for all kinds of animal species. Las Vegas will finally lose power as a result of the fall of the Hoover Dam, which will completely flood Arizona and parts of California. The nuclear winter will destroy all structures and monuments as a result of the dropping temperature levels that will be below zero, as well as multiple fires. Although everything looks grim, this is where the healing starts. The trash we left behind on the planet and inside our oceans will begin to be broken down through biodegradation as microorganisms break it down for food. Ocean life will begin to thrive. In 10 years, forest fires will spread rapidly and destroy cities like LA. In 20 years, low-altitude cities and countries like Japan will be completely submerged. All cities will either be scorched, underwater, or completely green. In 30 years, satellites orbiting the Earth will begin to be pulled inside by gravity and crash. After 50 years, the only traces of human speech that remain will be the domesticated parrots that survived. So make sure that you don't throw out F-bombs around them, or actually please do. Imagine an alien discovering the only clue to humanity's existence to be. A network of underground rivers in major cities would find its way up to the surface. Glass will cover the streets from the windows of all buildings and towers. Cars will now have rusted into a bunch of scrap metal. The insect population will have fully recovered from the radiation and will be thriving. As a result, the animal kingdom will thrive more than ever throughout the next century, as there is more food for everyone across the food chain, all the way to the top. After 150 years, only stone structures will still be standing. Ceramic artifacts might survive if they were shielded from blasts and debris. All other pieces of historical art, unfortunately, will be damaged or destroyed. By 300 years, all skyscrapers and historical monuments will fall apart and crumble from the damage and deterioration of the steel foundations. All metal will go. The only 3 structures that will survive on Earth are the Great Wall of China, the Great Pyramids of Giza, and Mount Rushmore. In 500 years, forests will have taken over all cities and homes, although some aluminum appliances may survive being corroded. All traces of asphalt will be replaced by green now. Temperatures will drop all over the world, and the atmosphere will undergo changes as it still adjusts to the new circumstances. The animal boom in numbers will begin to stabilize, and wolves will be the most prevalent animals around. After 1 million years, Mount Rushmore will barely be recognizable as all the features will break down. Only the pyramids and the Great Wall will be standing. In 100 million years, the only evidence of human existence will be the plastic shards left around and the remains of the pyramids, cementing itself as the greatest structure in all of history. Finally, after 5 billion years, there comes the end. What started by fire shall end by fire. The sun would have expanded and consumed the planet. The only remnants of our existence would be the Voyager space probes that we sent out far into the solar system. Maybe one day they could be found by aliens and discover the vast and wonderful history of humankind. But what if these aliens came to us first? Well, that's a question for another video. How do you think humanity will reach its demise? Do you think we as people like to focus on conflict and that death and destruction are in our nature? If you take away anything from this video, we ask you to think about how powerful the planet is and how wonderful some things are that we don't often think about. Focus on the greenery growing on the side of the road instead of complaining about traffic and how awful your workday is going to be. Don't take what you have for granted, as it could end and Earth could reclaim it any second. And finally, if you made it this far, make sure to like and subscribe. It helps us out a lot. Leave a comment about what we should discuss next. See you in the next one.